Hey everybody! So today we're going to talk some more about planets conjunct the Ascendant and what this might mean for the person. This is not universal or meant to be taken universally. And sorry about the last video. I had to cut it off weirdly because Instagram is now only letting videos, you might be watching this on YouTube, but Instagram's only letting videos be 15 minutes now. It's giving me a fucking hard ass time when they're longer, so I had to cut it off weirdly at the end of the last one. But so sorry about that. It's kind of abrupt. But okay, so planets conjunct the Ascendant. The Ascendant, depending on what house system you're using, it'll be in the first house. If you're using if you're using Placidus or Porphyry or something, it will be the cusp of the first house. If you're using whole signs, it will be somewhere in the first house. The Ascendant is tied with the first house. It sets the chart. It's where the chart rises. So this has to do with deals with a lot of things, but I think of it as your natural temperament, the natural knee-jerk reactions to the world you have, the world around you, the world that you come in contact with. I'm not going to be looking at the signs here, just planets conjunct the Ascendant, what this might, what needs to be expressed, what the planet needs to express, and how this might change how the Ascendant functions. In the last video I did the Sun through Mars. I'll link that video in the description box. In this one I'll be doing Jupiter through Pluto. And hold on, let me get my sorry, let me get my big ass bag here because I also wanted to do Chiron as well. I forgot to pull that out. Okay, there we go. Okay, so sorry about that. Okay, so if somebody has Jupiter conjunct the Ascendant, you might be looking at somebody who, I think if Jupiter conjunct the Ascendant, you might be dealing with somebody who's kind of larger than life. That might be what is needing to be expressed. There could be some of that anyway. I could see that coming into play. This person might seem Jupiter is wisdom and knowledge. This person might seem knowledgeable. They might seem like they have a fair amount of wisdom. There might be an expansiveness to them, to the person themselves. I would think they're probably pretty optimistic. That might be what needs to be expressed. They might be more optimistic. This is not universal, but they might be more optimistic towards the world around them. Their beliefs might be front and center. What they believe might be front and center to the way that they approach the world, the way they react to the world. All of those kinds of things seem more front and center when you have Jupiter conjunct the Ascendant. Now, depending on what house it's in, because you can have a conjunction to the Ascendant from the first house or the 12th. If it's in the first house, the person is probably more aware of this. If it's in the 12th house, they're probably not as aware of this. I'd also say luck here. If you've got Jupiter conjunct the Ascendant, this person, this person might be pretty lucky, and they might know it if it's in the first house. If it's in the 12th house, they might not realize how lucky they are, but other people will see it before they do. So all of those things seem like they could come into play with Jupiter conjunct the Ascendant. Now, if you want to look at the house cusps that, well, depending on what type of rulership you like to use. I like to use both modern and traditional. So if you use both, you want to look at the house cusps that Sagittarius and Pisces are on in the chart. Those houses will bend to Jupiter, where Jupiter falls. If you just want to look at, if you don't want to look at both rulerships, just look at the house cusp that Sagittarius falls on, is on the cusp of in the chart. That house will bend to Jupiter. Okay, so Saturn conjunct the Ascendant. you might be looking at somebody who, well, this could really, you know, like I've talked before about Saturn. Like I feel like Saturn can be boundaries and limitations and restrictions. It certainly can, but I think Saturn really wants you to break through these. So these people that have Saturn conjunct the ascendant, they might feel like they have more boundaries, more limitations, more, that might be what, like they might feel personally more limited or restricted from expressing themselves naturally, or there might be something going on there. Saturn does want you to break through that though. I think he does. There's also, I mean, Saturn is like, it's like mastery. So ideally these people should have a sense of self-mastery. Ideally, that should be what they strive for. Does it always translate that way? No, but that is what they should be shooting for. And they also have, Saturn is responsibility. They have responsibility to themselves. Really, they do. First and foremost, if you have, if Saturn is in the first house conjunct the ascendant, the person is probably more aware of this. If Saturn is conjunct the ascendant from the 12th house, the person is probably less aware of this. Less aware of all of this in some way. Again, none of this is universal, but that's kind of where my mind would go first with it. Yeah, there are a lot of other Saturn. I could harp on Saturn for a long time, because I love Saturn. But yeah, the self-mastery, the being in control of themselves too. That's something that they need to be able to do. The person might seem pretty mature. They might have even seemed mature when they were young. There'd be maturity about them. Yeah, all of those kinds of things. Even if they're not, even if they don't feel super mature, there usually is some sort of maturity about them. You'd want to look at the house cusp that Capricorn falls on in the chart. That will bend to Saturn. If you want to use traditional rulership too, definitely look at the house cusp that Aquarius is on. That house will bend to Saturn as well. Okay, Uranus conjunct the ascendant. So for this one, you might be dealing with somebody who, what they need to express. They need to express weirdness. They need to express difference. They need to express rebellion, or even chaos in some cases. All of, let me see, what else do we got? Liberation. Personal liberation actually feels like the way that this one should go. To liberate themselves. I don't know if it always goes that way, but I think that's the way that it wants to go. In this case, you would want to look at the house cusp that Aquarius falls on in the chart. That house will bend to Uranus conjunct the ascendant. If Uranus is in the first house, this person, let's say we're going with weird here for Uranus. The person's probably aware of their weirdness or their differences. If it's in the 12th house, they might not be as aware of it, but other people will be, probably. Okay, so Neptune conjunct the ascendant. What needs to be expressed here? Creativity, imagination, spirituality. These people, that's what needs to be expressed here. So these people might come across more that way, naturally to the world. Because Neptune is cloudy, it can be cloudy, and it doesn't really have boundaries. It lacks boundaries. You might have somebody who, I could even see somebody not really being aware of how they approach the world, their natural temperament. They may not be as clear on all of that. As I could see that happening. Depending on this, if this is going on in the 1st or the 12th house, right? If Neptune's in the 1st house, the person might be more aware of these things. If it's in the 12th house, conjunct the ascendant, they may be less aware of these things, even less aware of these things. There are a lot of other things that you could throw in for Neptune, but that's kind of where my mind will go first. Whatever house cusp Pisces is on in the chart will bend to Neptune conjunct the ascendant, depending on, you know, whether that's in the 1st or the 12th. So definitely take that into consideration. And we'll do Pluto. Pluto conjunct the ascendant. Okay, so this is like fucking power, right? There's like a powerfulness to these people. Like what they need to express power. They do need to express control. These people at their worst can seem really destructive. At their best can seem really transformative. These are also energies that are needing what needs to be expressed here. These people might go through a lot of deaths and rebirths in their lifetime. They might transform the way that they, you know, approach the world. I could see that coming into play too. That being like a transformational process over their lifetime. Probably pretty intense and pretty magnetic. That's also what is needing to be expressed. If it's in the 1st house, conjunct the ascendant, these people are probably pretty aware of this. If it's in the 12th house, conjunct the ascendant, they're probably not as aware of this. Yeah, I would say that's probably the case. For Pluto, you'd want to look at the house cusp that Scorpio is on in the chart. That house will then bend to Pluto conjunct the ascendant. And the last one I'm going to do is Chiron. Chiron conjunct the ascendant. Okay, so in the other video that I made about these, I mentioned that like the ascendant, I think I briefly mentioned it here too, I don't really remember. But some people think of the ascendant as one's appearance. It certainly can be, you know, but it's not, I don't think of the ascendant so much as your, like how you look from a genetic point of view, or even from like a family line point of view. It's more like how you, to me, it's more like how you style yourself, how you carry yourself, those sorts of things. It can be your physical looks, but I do think it tends to be more of an attitude thing, more of a temperament thing. So with Chiron conjunct the ascendant, yes, there can be some kind of a physical wounding. There can be some kind of actual physical wounding. How that manifests depends on the sign, whatever. But it doesn't always have to go that way. It can, but it doesn't always have to go that way. Really more, when I see Chiron conjunct the ascendant, more than I would automatically think physical, though I certainly would be curious about that. I would also, my mind would go to this person, since the core wounding happens where the chart rises, it does make me think that they might approach the world in a more wounded way. If it's in the 12th house, they may not realize this. If it's in the 1st house, they probably do. They may not like it. There could be something going on about this, though. There's like a wounding about how they approach the world. They might perceive themselves as being physically wounded in some way. This may not actually be the case, but they might perceive it that way. They might perceive it more of a physical thing when really it's not. But definitely there's wounding about, you know, there is wounding there, and it is very central to how they approach the world at large, how they react to things in a knee-jerk way. It colors all of that. So exactly how that plays out depends on the entire chart, but I could see those things coming up when Chiron is conjunct the ascendant. Anyway, I'm gonna get going so I don't have to cut it off weird here in this video. If you are watching this on Instagram, you can find us on YouTube by searching for Let's Fuck with Astrology in the YouTube search bar. If you want to follow us on Instagram, you can find us at Let's Fuck with Astrology. I am at Saturn Season Astrology on Instagram. Natalie is at Apaterno Astrology on Instagram. If you do the Reddit thing, come join us on the subreddit Let's Fuck with Astrology. And if you're interested in the star cards, go to letsfuckwithastrology.com/star-cards. And I'll put some stuff in the description box, like the orbs to use for this kind of stuff. So do take a look. Okay, I'll see y'all later.